What's up, everybody, and thank you for joining the party because this week the Dirty Rotten Casuals have got Todd here to talk about the PSVR 2. We're going to talk about the live streaming service gaming model, like how that's working out, and also why or why not the Dreamcast is goated. Let's get it. What's going on? Once again, welcome to the Dirty Rotten Casuals, where we're talking about gaming from top to bottom, left to right. We're talking about all of it, and each time I'm always joined by the Irishman, aka Brian. What's going on, man?
What is up, man? How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. How's it going?
I'm good, man. Feeling good. Got that bacchiotomy, as you put it on the recording list. Got the chiropractor appointment, so my neck is
Nice,
feeling
man.
better. I'm sure I will ruin it once again with screen time and an anxiety disorder, or just being alive in this day and age.
Yeah,
I feel like
that's
is a good reason,
it's enough to be tight and tense, but that's why we're playing these games to like kind of like shake that dumb regular life going to the grocery store and all that other bullshit. Because that's always kind of stressful for some reason. Just kind of driving to the grocery store sucks, and driving back sucks. It's not even that far. I just don't want to do it anymore.
I'm just playing video games, just not thinking about the fact that there are multiple increasingly senile old men just doing whatever with classified documents. So, everything's cool. It's fine.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to go back to the days of sitting at home playing a bunch of video games locked inside. I wish I could just like do that every once in a while, but but yeah. And during that time, we definitely played a lot of video games with this dude right here. What's going on, Todd? How's it going, man?
What's up, fellas? Thank you for having me.
Todd, looking like a supervillain over here with this lighting and background.
Thank you. Well, if I turn the lights on,
you look like you are plotting. Much. You look like you are plotting against the Federation, or you're about to give Order 66 to take out the Jedi.
If you pulled the hood up, that might complete the Palpatine look. But we'll go with the the hoodie in the dark room.
Okay, thank you for the compliment.
No, it's actually dope. I have a salt lamp in my my bedroom that kind of gives off that light, and I actually super love it. So
nice salt lamp. Checks out.
Yeah, for keep the vibes up.
It's supposed to ionize and cleanse the air. I just thought
very
it was
conducive
cool.
to strong vibes.
Yes.
We're all about the vibes here, man.
Yeah,
people still talk like that? I don't think people.
Whenever a girl comes over, I just like, oh, that's the vibes lamp, and then she leaves.
That's a good way to get them out of there. So yeah, play more video games.
Yeah, I love being single. It's great.
Yeah, man, you got to get you a gamer girl. That's what you got to do. You got to find these like-minded,
I keep scrolling through TikTok and seeing all these e-girls, and I'm like, where are all these e-girls at? I'm like, oh yeah, they're in their houses playing video games, just like I'm doing. So
right, that's where you have to meet them.
Like I gotta meet these people who are averse to meeting new people, like I am. Oh shit! Oh, I see my dilemma here. Damn it.
Yeah, man, you got to get in the metaverse. That's really what it is.
I can't wait until like the real future metaverse where it's like you put on the goggles and the breathing apparatus, and then you get into like the goo, like you're in the Matrix pod.
Sounds nice. See, that'll be retirement, bro. That'll be retirement.
Yeah.
I know a few people that are still playing Sims from like 20 years ago. They're just like still throwing parties in the Sims and like living Sim life.
Oh yeah, man. Definitely. That's that's definitely still going on. I see it all the time, man. I think they're going to do that into their retirement too. We're going to see a lot of people in their like 80s playing the Sims or like in VR, just kind of doing Minecraft.
Mm-hmm. Well, so when I was talking about how Yahtzee Croshaw coined the term like dad game, where it's like the simulators of like flight simulator, train simulator, Football Manager Simulator. There's one that's Lawn Mowing Simulator. It's like all these dad games because they're like, well, I'm old. I don't really get out of the house much anymore, but I remember this activity that I used to do. So, and then there's the Post Dad game, which is a dad game but with like a fantasy twist. And I remember that's one of the games I tried. It was called Hard Space Shipbreaker. It's all about like you're a salvager, and it's just like a first person game where you have tools and you're supposed to like methodically like cut apart like little pieces of the ship and like put it in either like the furnace or the barge or the thing, and if you do it wrong like something will explode, and you could like your character will like die and regenerate, or like you could, if you blow something up that you didn't mean to, you lose out on that money. So it's like, oh, it's like a methodical game, but like yeah, it's a chore game, kind of like how like Stardew Valley. It's a game about farming, but it's like pixel art and cute. Like it's not farming simulator.
See, some of that's appealing because I need some like menial things to take my mind off the world, but then I also have a regular job, and it feels like that's partially a job.
That's why it's always, as soon as a game feels like it's a job, I usually put it down. And that's like I know like what is it? Tourist Trophy felt like a job, so I put it down. Red Dead felt like that at first, and then it got away, and then it turned into Red Dead. But there are certain games where it's like, oh, I gotta, you have to like sit down and do this for 4 or 5 hours a day, or it's like not even worth it to do it. And it's like, nah.
Yeah,
that's not.
That said, I did watch like a 30-minute review of like Trucking USA Simulator, and I was like, I could maybe get into this. Get to hit the turn signal, and just like waiting in the parking lot.
Man.
There's a post dad game of that, Elite Dangerous, which I showed Travis. Looks crazy in VR, but you're essentially, you can do like pirate hunting or whatever, but you're essentially doing deliveries between like star systems. But it's a super like it is a space game. It's basically like Spaceship Simulator, but like you know. And by the way, Todd, I should let you know, if Travis and Devin ever say, "Oh, Brian Tourist Trophied us again," it's because that's another game that I played 100%, like till the last race, where it was like down to, I was like adjusting the gear ratios and redoing the race just by little bits, because I was like, I did the last race, beat the last person. I 100% in that game. I fucking loved that game.
It was a motorcycle game produced by the same people who made Gran Turismo.
Yeah,
which is something we are definitely talking about.
Oh, this was PS2 era.
Okay.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a motorcycle game like that in a long time.
MotoGP and the Isle of Man TT, those two games are very they're very realistic and very difficult, just like that one was. I didn't put too many hours into it because I wasn't really sure if I really wanted to go down that motorcycle path again, because it's like it's a lot to like really focus up and learn a different style of racing, because motorcycles are obviously like completely different to cars, and I have no experience with motorcycles in reality. So
I tried a little bit of it, and it was just a real frustrating experience, because it really is like, oh, I didn't like hit this turn at the right speed, or I like went too far, and you just fall. Obviously, like in real life, but like in Tourist Trophy, I remember like you could just like full turn and it would just go to like that angle. But in these other ones, it's like, oh, I full turned and just whipped myself off the bike, and like I kept whipping myself into trees, and I was like, well, this is like more frustrating than it is fun. So that's one that I didn't,
the Isle of Man one.
I think that's it. The Isle of Man, or I think I tried MotoGP 3, whatever, the one that was on Game Pass. I was like, oh, we'll check it out.
Yeah, they were on Game Pass.
An hour later, I was like, I can't. This is too.
No, the Isle of Man one was crazy. Like, you really that was like, it felt almost like it was a troll. Because I think it felt like they were like, oh, you'll never be able to actually do this race, because in reality, nobody can do this race. Right. There's like there's literally like 40 people that do it, and some of them aren't successful. It's very, very scary.
And then those guys may or may not be alive. So that's the other thing. Yeah. It is a dangerous sport. I think you said that like you thought that like the Isle of Man shouldn't be a thing. Is that right? Like
In my personal
wise?
opinion, I think that they should just shut it down. Like somebody dies every year. It's too much. Not cool.
There's another motorcycle game that I've seen on TikTok that looks so realistic that I'll scroll through a new video. Ride 4, and it's somebody crashing into a tree, and I'm like, oh my god! And then I go to the comments, like, it's Ride, it's not real, it's Ride. Like it looks that realistic. Because I'm like, oh god, I just saw somebody die on TikTok.
I've been traumatized.
Yeah, and then I was like, wait. It wouldn't be on TikTok if it was somebody like actually dying. So
it is a video game.
Yeah, like
I would be curious to do that in VR because I already get that pit in my stomach sensation when you go over a hill.
Yeah,
so crashing, I imagine, could be startling.
I was gonna say this sounds like a really good way to like undo all of the chiropractic work I just saw. Just from, like, oh god, and like just whipping my own head back and like injuring myself. Like the next podcast, I'm just gonna have a neck brace. Like, well, I tried that Ride VR, and now I need surgery.
Oh yeah, I scared myself to death. And then that's and that's like kind of the thing, man. Like, are we ready for that? For like high speed VR, because I don't think that's been done yet, other than, people who are modding things or playing, what is it? Like you just mentioned, Elite Dangerous.
What is I've seen human virtual reality speed record is a good question. The fastest a person's gone in VR.
Well, what would that even mean at that point? Like in a vehicle,
like the simulated fastest speed. I mean, surely there's like rocket launcher simulator. This is where I profess my ignorance of like the software available for most of them, but presumably a racing game.
Yeah. Well, there's not too many racing games that are truly compatible with it, but that's why this news recently is actually exciting, because PlayStation just released they just released PSVR 2, and everybody's been testing it out, and one of the release titles for it is Gran Turismo 7, which is nuts. That is absolutely crazy, because in order to do the same thing on my PC, I would need at least like a $600 graphics card plus a $400 to $600 headset. You're in no way are you even coming close to like the deal that the PSVR 2 is. It's crazy.
Sure.
It's weird that that's the like Meta Quest now. I forget, like, it's not just like the Oculus Quest. It's the Meta Quest.
And very affordable. I mean, we can get into it, but the price of the PSVR 2 is $550, which is more expensive than the console required to run it, which is expensive for sure.
But then you also have like the Meta Quest Pro, which is what, $1,500 or something, like ridiculous thing. And like I'm like, why am I buying this? Is this for Metaverse? Because that looks like garbage.
That seems almost more enterprise aimed or something like that. Because it doesn't seem specifically gamer oriented the way that like the Valve headsets are. So again, in that sense, PSVR 2 does hit an arguable kind of a value proposition, especially if you've already bought a PlayStation. Maybe even if you haven't, but if you have, it seems like a great deal. The same way that an Oculus Rift was a good deal.
Well, I feel like for me, the barriers for the VR sets are the price, which, like, yes, if you have the money and you are an avid gamer, like there are like multiple different setups you can get. I feel like the price can vary, but they're getting better at cost effectiveness. But for me, the other thing is like the software, and for VR, like anything in a cockpit is great. So driving games, Elite Dangerous, flight simulators, that's great. Now you also have like some good shooters and stuff like that. Like Half-Life Alyx came out and was really, really well received. So I feel like the games for it are getting better. And like now that the price options are there, like it looks more and more appealing because you know, like when it first came out, like I think the big thing was Beat Saber, which is still big, but like I feel like you just need they're starting to lock down like the style and type of game and like expand that library from there. Like they're seeing what works and they're like making more actual high quality VR games.
Half-Life Alex, that's a port that I wish was announced on PSVR 2. That and PlayStation or PC compatibility would make it an easy buy immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to buy one like within a week of it coming out, I'm certain. But those things do decrease the value a little bit. But again, you said Half-Life Alex, as far as I'm concerned, is like the only game that's truly been next level, full game experience. As cool as things like Beat Saber are. Not denying that.
Wow, did you hear that? We were both hilarious yet insightful. Anyways, thanks for listening to each episode of The Folding List. We appreciate the support and we're glad you're not just hate listening. Actually, we don't care. Just keep coming back and listening. And while you're at it, make sure to check out the other podcasts in the Chino umbrella. We've got the Nightly Binge, the Movie Dogs, and Sandusky's Talk Shit. All great podcasts with interesting people and topics. Back to the show.
Welcome back. So So Brian, I know you kind of you told me about it before the pod, but what do you want to talk about, man, with this live service gaming?
Okay, so like we're always talking about how live services. I'll just like jump right into it and we can go from there. So besides the fact that Square Enix has announced multiple shutdowns of games for lack of interest, including Babylon's Fall, which like isn't even a year old. But that's because it was so unpopular. At one time, there was one player on Steam. There was like literally just one person on it. But they also like announced like literally it was a complete flop. Complete flop. It was
Charles is on today.
I guess I'm just gonna wander through here and hope somebody jumps in. Nobody's jumping in, Charles. You're on your own, Charles. But besides that, there's been a number of other announcements for just straight up shutdowns. Not even just no more service shutdowns. So a couple of mobile games, Apex Legends Mobile and Battlefield Mobile. There's a
really?
Yeah, the both the mobile games they're gonna shut down. There's not enough interest for them.
Wow.
There's a Crossfire X, which is it was kind of popular but very poorly rated. It was I tried it. It was not a good game at all. But there's also a couple of smaller ones. Rumbleverse, which was a fairly well received battle royale brawler. So instead of battle royale first person shooter, and it's like literally like cartoon characters doing wrestling moves and power bombing each other. It looked like kind of cute and fun.
That sounds kind of cool.
It looked really cool. I'm not gonna lie, but that one's out, and then another.
That's probably when we could have gotten Devin to play, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
People on that.
Well, speaking of that, well, before that, Knockout City, which was a dodgeball game, but also one included in this list that I don't feel like is fair. Turtle Rock announced that they weren't going to do any more stuff for Back for Blood. They're not shutting it down, but they're like, we're moving on. And a lot of people have included this in the story, but I feel like Back for Blood was a fully realized game. It had 3 expansion packs, and it is not a live service in the same way that these other ones are live service. They're just like,
it's just
we're going to work on a new game. We're going to keep the servers up. But like, we're moving on.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, it's a dead game. Well, it doesn't have the same elements.
I feel like it would be a dead game if the whole point of the game was to like evolve and change every season, like Apex and Call of Duty and all these crazy games. So like when they are like, yeah, it's we're constantly changing and growing this game. That makes sense if it just stop. If they're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. Like, yeah, the concept is dead, but not like, man, Back for Blood's such a dope game that like I can't even put it in that category. Like, yeah, of course they're not going to work on it anymore. They were
Well, it's been
when they
modestly
released
successful, right? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But
The numbers
I
are
would
quite.
assume so.
Well, apparently the numbers don't live up to even
versus Square Enix.
Left 4 Dead 2, which still gets 14-year-old game, still gets like more average players.
That's
but I feel like there was enough there, like graphically, with the card systems, with the expansions. It's a standard online co-op shooter, which is like, here's the game and here's the stuff and here's 3 expansions. Okay, now we need to stop because we're not a big studio and we want to make more games. And that's, I think, like the thing that a lot of people don't realize about the live service is it takes a lot of effort to maintain all of that and to continuously add. So unless you're one of the big ones, Fortnite, Warzone, I feel like Apex Legends is up there, like it takes a lot of resources. So unless you have like a big player base, they're not really incentivized to keep it going. Unless like Left 4 Dead, they said, or Back for Blood, they said, we're going to keep the servers on. You can still playing. Okay, that's fine. That's totally fine. But there are some other ones, I think smaller ones. One of them said, we're going to give you like refunds for your purchases, which is great. Another one just said, no, we're not offering refunds for your in-game purchases. So it's like a pretty mixed bag. I commend whichever one that said they were going to refund players for their purchases. That's great. But it comes back to, okay, this game is something that we like, but they're doing the live service model. Is this going to get like shut down if not enough people play it? Should I really invest any time into it? And like with Back for Blood, I feel like that game was great. I hope Devin like comes back on and we can all rock on that game again. But I felt like it was a good spiritual success. Not quite the same tone as Left 4 Dead, but I feel like there was enough new there to keep it fresh and enough core stuff that it stayed true to like the feeling of the original. And with the 3 expansions, I haven't played any of them, but I'm interested. And like, even if I would have to pay for those, it was a day 1 Game Pass release and it was great. Like I had a ball with it.
Yeah, man. We played that, like it gave like a lot of great moments in the sense of like us all having to work together and you're kind of like yelling at each other, but like in a good way of just like, please help me. Where are y'all? Stop running. Like there's a lot of good stuff like that. Like
Devin, I'm sorry. Just running away.
Yeah, it's like a consummate Game Pass game where I never would have played that if it wasn't on Game Pass, but then I sunk a fair amount of hours into it.
Yeah. Well, it's another one of those games that like it is a fun like game that we can all hop on, and it's not like you're not hopping into a lobby with a bunch of like cheaters and trolls and smurfs, because it's another game where you can just play it co-op, you and 3 friends, and those are the kind of games. Like, so when it came out, I was like, yeah, I wanted a game like this, and it delivered, man. It was really, really good.
That's what I wanted from Halo, and they never delivered it, and now they're firing people and skimming down the entire operation.
There's more news about that.
Oh,
sure,
really?
Sorry, I preempted one of your news.
Yeah. What happened?
So Jason Schreier came out with another report. I would have to like read it to get fresh, but apparently, they were saying like, oh, we'll support like Halo, blah blah blah. Apparently, a lot of the talk around the office at 343 was they kind of were immediately like, all right, next Halo game behind the scenes, even though they were promising to like put more content into Halo Infinite. It seems like they kind of like checked out pretty soon, like at least the higher ups. I'm not really sure like what the exact details are, but yeah, they were like, oh well, that didn't go well. what's the next one? And they're like, no, we have to fix this one. It's
wow.
Halo Infinite is not looking good, man. It's a big,
That's
big
crazy.
fumble. I'm kind of over it at this point, to be honest, man.
Well, like, who would pick up the production at that point? Is it the same production company, just like with a smaller team?
Mm-hmm.
I think
less resources, and they're moving to Unreal Engine, I believe. Is that also part
they're
of
moving
it?
to Unreal.
Which I assume means
they're
slimming
not
down
going to
their
have
technical staff to
they're not going
replace
to
it
have
with.
they're not going to have any single player content at all.
At all?
They're not going to add any new single player content.
Speaking of Xbox, they just need to get their big games out this year, and so I'm sure with Halo, they kind of consider that. I guess we'll.
Wow. So they're just releasing a multiplayer Halo, just a new multiplayer Halo with an Unreal Engine, basically.
No, I think. Well, yeah, I think that's far into the future, perhaps. So.
Okay.
But more changes to the team that develops the current product. So,
well, 343 isn't going to helm the next Halo. So for this Halo Infinite, it just seems like we're going to get only a small amount of like online content, and especially after the layoffs, and then after finding out that like the higher ups like were kind of just over it right after release. It's like you guys really dropped the ball and you didn't really care at the beginning, and like it's starting to show. So yeah, it's not looking good for that franchise. But I mean, there's always more Back for Blood. We could always just play some more of that.
This section is sponsored by Back for Blood.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got better games to recommend than Back for Blood, I must be honest. I've been playing Ragnarok and that shit's tight. About 20 hours in.
Yeah, I definitely want to check that one out.
Very satisfying.
Like, I'm like trying to figure out what single player game I really want to get back into, because like I'm playing the Spider-Man, like that's like I've got Spider-Man 2 locked in, but I was like about to pull the trigger on Last of Us, and then it's not on sale anymore. It's it's the same price, but it's not that low price.
$70 is a lot for a game that came out like 9 years ago or something originally, but it looks really good. I can confirm from having played the what's it called, The Last of Us Part 1, and I have not played Part 2, but it was very
I just want to watch the show, but
I was going to say the show's gotten real big.
Yes.
Yeah, the show's gotten big, and everybody is like literally sobbing over episode 3. I'm like, oh man,
yes,
HBO's in his bag for sure.
Smiling ear to ear. They're like, yes, exactly.
Yes.
And it's fine. The Uncharted movie was really bad.
Your tears sustain us.
Yeah, like you said, the new Spider-Man comes out later this fall. Like,
oh man, so I guess I do have to finish.
Yeah, because I misspoke. Not True Spider-Man 2. That comes out in the fall, which is why you got to hurry up and play Miles Morales in addition.
Yeah, I need to just go ahead and finish that. I beat the first one. Well, I didn't 100% it or anything like that. I just beat the story. But then there's like all that other there's like 4 other short stories that have been that I got as DLC, and like I'm like I can't beat these 4 other stories too. Like, man, I wish I had more time to dig into it. But I could, but I just. You know me. I do my own thing. It's over there. Y'all know what it is.
Yeah, my game of the year still may be Stray, just because it was contained enough I could do it in like 2 weekends. And I was like, oh, that was nice.
Oh,
wow. Finished that game. It's done. Nice thing to look back on.
There's something to be said about games that like that's kind of my other thing against like live services is like when you play a game from start to finish and you finish it and you're like, that was a good experience and now it's over and I can move on to another game. Whereas like the live services is like, well, like we gotta get people playing this game like a job, and it's like, like you said, man, once it starts to become a job, you're real grindy. If you're like, is the core loop fun? Are we having fun? It's like Rocket League is a fun game without all of the like season pass or whatever. It's just like us.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Playing soccer with remote control cars, and that, hey, it's cool. If you get something that looks cool, slap it on your car. If you don't, whatever, you're still having fun. It's still
it's still flying cars that can explode.
Yeah,
it's pretty great.
So when it comes to like stuff like that and Left 4 Dead, where there's like, oh, there's like cosmetic pay for stuff over there. You're like, cool. I don't care. I still got these like guns, and like you can get all the attachments and cards and everything you need in the game. So whatever. If you want to like have a free to play game and charge, I have no problem with that, as long as you don't make it overly grindy. But yeah, there's something to be said about games that just like as like a product. I've been checking out this console version of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and I'm like, man, this game, it's basically a remaster, but they got the controls really right. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's a single player real-time strategy game. I'm like,
single player.
Yeah, like you there is like co-op, there is versus multiplayer, but I'm just playing the campaigns. I'm like, oh, it's just like a good, like, oh, this game really actually
Age of Empires rules.
Yeah, it was
PC.
I only played a little bit of it back in the day, but I didn't really have the same mentality. You know, I was a teenager, so I was like, I just want to shoot things and blow things up.
Sure,
and
yeah, I was doing more StarCraft as well.
Yeah, I played
like farming, and
I played StarCraft on the Nintendo 64.
Damn.
I'm old as fuck.
That's pretty broke.
Anyways,
Brian. You should have played it on a PC.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was broke of me, Todd. I was a child.
As a N64 owner and fan, an RTS with the stick, I can only imagine it's like the worst experience.
Oh, it wasn't great, but
one of the best controllers ever for certain things, but probably not clicking.
Definitely not for that. Well, here's the thing. They actually like optimized it really well for the control. They figured out like how to like make the shortcuts and like jump like two buttons really work. So yeah, it's actually a smooth experience.
I remember seeing it. That is peak 64 technology that they thought they could get away with.
I'm talking about Age of Empires
now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like the Age of Empires like console edition, I'm like, oh, they did a really good job of optimizing controls, and just that plus remastered graphics. I'm like, oh, this game's still great. Like, it's still a great experience. And the campaigns, I made it through like the first tutorial one, and now I'm on like the Joan of Arc campaign. I'm like, oh, this is like a long game. Like, it is a good strategy game, but it takes a while because you have to like defend and build up, and if you get your ass handed to you in a fight, you got to build up more, and you got to make sure to like find your resources and protect them. So I think like the last campaign mission I did was relatively quick. But the one before that, I think it took like 3 hours, like that mission, because it took me that long
time.
It took me that long to like find and destroy everything, and
see,
but it's great. I like was genuinely like, oh, I finished it, and then I looked at the clock, like, oh, I need to go to bed.
Oh yeah,
that's a Game Pass game.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass. It's for the console. Nice. It should be for the PC too.
Nice.
I don't suppose anyone's played the new GoldenEye and the remake.
No.
I've heard negative things. That's why it's sad.
Yeah. I'm not really trying to. So. I'm not trying to play it.
It's an example of like nostalgia that doesn't need to be revisited, because I tried it. I'm like, this game is clunky as fuck, and it's so weird to see like the game that basically revolutionized first-person shooter genre, like, and like you play it again, and like now you're like, oh, like I see the bones of all the modern first-person shooters, but it's just there's a reason they got better and better and better and better.
They've basically perfected it at this point. And like I can't see them changing it any more than that. So now you have like the furthest down the line in evolution and like the beginning next to each other, and you're like, ooh, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah. Well, our standards have changed, right? Because we grew up with stuff like that, and like, yes, it was fun back in the day. I played the shit out of some GoldenEye, played the shit out of Perfect Dark, which is like, it's not quite sequel. It was like a spiritual successor to GoldenEye. I loved them both, but then I picked up this GoldenEye. I was like, oh yikes! Like this is like not the experience that I remember it being. But it's through the rose tinted glasses of nostalgia, man. And some of them hold up, like Age of Empires.
They
Some of
would
them don't.
they would truly need to remake it like they did that Resident Evil that they did recently, to where it was like a full-on remake. I think if they did that, it would be really cool, because honestly, going back and rewatching all of the old James Bonds, I think we talked about this on another podcast, Todd, but going back and watching like the old James Bonds, like with Pierce Brosnan, the only one that I actually enjoyed was GoldenEye. Like, they just got progressively worse and worse and worse. But if you actually took the movie GoldenEye and like remade it into a new game today, I think it would be super dope. I think they could do it in a way that would be really cool. But it would take some creativity, but also like a little bit of the fans like, y'all need to chill out, because it's going to be different. Like, why is the golden gun not doubled with double rocket launchers? I need 2 of them. Like, right. All right, like no, it'll happen.
Your harshest critics are going to be the people who played the game, know it, and love it. But you totally do that just to get new people. Like, they came out with The Last of Us for people like me who hadn't played it, didn't own a PS4. But then obviously, if you just bought it on PS4, you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, he usually re-released this game and it's $70, and it's like the same game with better graphics. Man. But I get it. I feel like as long as it doesn't take resources away from creative new games, and it seems like there's there's plenty of them. It's cool. There's a lot of them at this point.
And like you said, as long as it's not taking away from other creative and new games, like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. But in this case, I feel like I was saying before, it's so far removed from what we play today. I feel like you could easily remake that game and kind of just have it like pay homage to the original GoldenEye game, because I don't like remember the campaign, but sure. I can imagine that like jumping off of the dam scene like probably doesn't feel the same as the movie. Just like a little block character.
In my mind, the facility is like a sprawling complex, and I know it's like 6 hallways.
Straight up.
It brings to mind the Doom remake that Bethesda did, because like when Microsoft acquired Bethesda, they put all of that on Game Pass, and I was like, oh, like let me try like Doom 2, because like they said they wanted in the spirit of actually no, I said let me try Doom 1. Oh, you can't look up and down. It's literally
I figured that. Yeah.
Oh wow. You take all that stuff for granted.
You got that fucked up. You got
yeah. Like I was like, okay, let me try like Doom 2, and I'm like, okay, this is better. You can like look around like more and better and travel faster, but like, and like there's aspects of it that are still fun, but it's like it's so the Doom 2016 captured that so well that it's like, well, now there's really no reason to go back and play this except for like a little trip down memory lane. And so now that we have new Doom, and maybe like gaming purists would crucify me for this, you don't need old Doom. Like you don't like you have Doom.
You can have the memory, but like let it go.
Yeah. Some things are better off like left in the past, and you see that when you go back and you're like, oh, I don't remember it being like this, but it was always like that. You just didn't know because you didn't have the better stuff.
You didn't have anything better. Yeah.
You could draw a line at Counter-Strike. Everything like before that is like fucking trash.
Ooh,
it's cool for retro sake, but like it's all like 2D sprites and shit.
Oh man, I'll never forget going to your house, Brian, and you playing Counter-Strike, and you had Counter-Strike Source when it first came out.
And
you were like, I wonder what'll happen if we like turn the graphics all the way up. Let's see. All right, hit apply.
Yep.
Computer just turned
Crash.
off.
Yep. Error.
I was like, oh shit.
I was expecting to see smoke coming from the
Need more
tower.
memory, bro.
Yeah.
I wonder what the specs were of that machine.
Well, and the funny
Wow.
thing is,
Definitely
man,
slower
Wow.
than your phone.
that
Yeah.
Counter-Strike Global Offensive is like still one of the most played games because like the bones of it were so good. And
Counter-Strike Go.
Oh yeah.
It's funny because like now you have a whole genre of first-person shooter, a whole subgenre called the boomer shooter, which is like throwback old school shooters. I played one of them on Game Pass called Proteus, which seemed like it was like very Doom-esque, but like updated. So it was almost like it would be like Doom 3 if Doom Doom like a proper sequel to Doom 2, but not like a huge change like Doom 3 was or the remake was, because like I was like, oh, this I still get, but so I'm like, well, oh, this is like a good example of like a boomer shooter in old age. But then I saw like they re-released the first two Turok games from N64, and I was like,
yeah.
that looks interesting, but I bet it's not as good as I remember, so I'm not gonna play.
No.
Like, so because I was like, I can't ruin my
What a
experience
fog.
like I did that. Yeah, like, you know, like I did for GoldenEye.
I almost feel like I remember Turok being clunky at the time. I can't
Oh, it was
imagine
terrible.
now.
It was just like
Yeah.
all you could see were dinosaurs, but it was fucking awesome.
Just a bunch of dinosaurs.
with guns. I mean, it checks out.
I played
One
the
of the
shit out of
better.
that.
Meanwhile,
Yeah,
you're
it was
like
great.
playing a plumber.
Bow and
in
arrow.
games. I mean, hell yeah.
Well, you had the
All
bow
that.
and arrow with the exploding tips, so like there would be these big
Crazy.
dinosaur monsters. I would hit one in the head and would go, and just like head would explode off. And it was so, but like I said, man,
Yeah.
like I did this with a movie when I was like, oh, I remember seeing this when I was a teenager. So yeah, sure, I'll throw on Van Helsing. Oh, this movie's terrible. Wow.
The Rocketeer was mine. I loved that movie as a child, and I went back and watched it.
No, Travis, I don't have the heart to watch that movie ever again because I know
Don't watch it again.
Todd,
It's really bad.
Todd, is there one that got ruined for you, man?
Oh man, off the top of my head, I can't think of it. Probably any movie I saw on TBS or TNT for a 10-year period, I thought was really good, just because it was always on TV. Some of those turned out to be the case, like The Shank, but some of them were just like whack 90s movies.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
But
say The Shank?
Yeah, The Shawshank Redemption.
I have never heard anyone refer to The Shawshank Redemption as The Shank.
Yeah,
I thought it was a movie I'd never seen before.
Obviously.
When you said The Shank, I thought it was like a Saw knockoff or something.
I knew exactly what it was talking about, but I was like, God dang.
That one with Rosie O'Donnell in it, a bunch of these inspirational kind of heartfelt movies. They don't make them anymore. Kevin Costner movies,
Yeah. What was it? Field of Dreams?
Yeah, which probably is bad too.
I'm sure it is.
Right.
I actually had the opposite experience of watching House of a Thousand Corpses because back in the day, I didn't really have. Like, I think I've mentioned this in the folding list. I didn't have any idea of like subgenres or grindhouse movies or anything. So when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is supposed to be a scary movie. This sucks." And then like later, like as an adult, just a couple years ago, I watched it, and as soon as I saw like Rian Johnson and like Chris Hardwick name pop up, I was like, oh, I completely misunderstood this movie, and then I enjoyed it. I was like, oh, it's like supposed to be a campy, almost comedy. Like,
still need to see it. Still on the list, man. I haven't seen it.
It is weirdly like it's a Rob Zombie movie, so it's like gross and low budget, but like it's a grindcore movie or grindhouse movie, grindcore movie. Sorry, no. I've been listening to a lot of metal at the gym anyway. But yeah, man, that's the thing. You can't let the like nostalgia cloud your judgment, and because you will definitely have that moment of like, oh, I love this back in the day, and you go back to it and you're like, oh, we have way better stuff. It's kind of like, when we can't turn into our parents. Oh, this was much better back in the day, and then like a younger person like tries the thing, and they're like, this is garbage, Grandpa. What are you talking about? We can't be that. We can't be left behind. We gotta remember, like, stay current.
Oh yeah, man. But like before we stay completely current, Todd, I need to get the lowdown on Dreamcast. Like, I think you are one of the only people I know that was like a Dreamcast aficionado.
Really?
So I need to know, man. Like, why do you feel like the Dreamcast was a slept on system back in the day?
Oh man. They were the first to innovate a lot of really cool ideas. I mean, they were the first console with a modem, the first console with broadband. They had the little VMU. It was like a little portable thing you plug into the thing. They had a ton of really genius ideas. They were not a really well-run company, it seems, just based on a lot of things, not the least of which was that I pirated a large portion of my library because you could just like burn their games with a regular CD player, which surely was not good for their business model. But with all that said, they did release some just incredible games.
Wait, you could just straight burn them onto a CD? Like, you could just find their game.
Regular CD-ROM burner, you didn't, and they had used a special type of disc called like a GD-ROM. They didn't use regular DVDs somehow. They didn't need the storage space. They were in a weird place where they were in between. They were much more advanced than the 64, but they were not quite as advanced as the PS2, the supercomputer PS2 that came out like somewhat afterwards and just kind of blew it out of the water technically.
Yeah, because I just had the PS2.
Sega had was Sega's like unique, stuff, which since the Saturn had been cool. I had a friend, my friend Dan's brother had the Saturn. He had been a child actor, had got a lot of money, and the thing he bought was a Sega Saturn. This shit is the coolest fucking shit. He had the whole collection, knights, everything.
Did he have a Power Glove?
I knew nobody with a Saturn. I mean, that was insane. And no one bought a Saturn.
I remember seeing the Sega Saturn on display in the Toys R Us. Again, aging myself very badly. But I remember, and it's funny you bring that up, man, because the Sega Saturn, I just saw a thing about it, how like it came out right around the time of the PS1 and had $100, like it was $100 more than the PS1. And that, so like bad timing, like 2 times in a row, and both times Sony was like, here's our thing. Boom. And like well, yeah, I remember my brother's friend had a Sega Dreamcast, and he played the Tony Hawk game on it, and it looked much better than the Tony Hawk version that was on 64. Like I was like, oh, this is cool. But then like right after that, PS2 came out and kind of just cleaned house. Like that was probably the golden age of like mesh of like AAA and mid-tier gaming, because there were so many games for like PlayStation 2. But I remember it like cut the legs off of the Dreamcast before it even really got a chance to like do anything.
Yeah, so I believe the PS2 is the most successful console of all time, and partially to our point about pirating the Dreamcast games, you couldn't do them on PlayStation. Not only because the security was better, because it took DVDs and also played DVDs, which you could tell your parents when they bought you an expensive PlayStation. You'd be like, well, no, you can watch Die Hard on DVD.
Yep, parents, I'm sorry if you're listening to this now. That's how I got that PlayStation 2.
Yeah, we tricked you.
I knew it. I knew you would fall for the old DVD trick. Oh man, but that was like the best selling point, is because it like you did have a DVD player and you could just play video games, so everybody was happy, especially when DVD players were very expensive at the time.
Right, they would like that was I think the first like real multimedia console. Like like it's funny to think about, because like this was still back in the day of like memory cards. But yeah, like you had the DVD ability to play DVDs, and Todd, it's so funny you talk about pirating these games, because I remember going to that guy's house with the Dreamcast, and he's like, yeah, here's the Dreamcast, and now let's download something off of Napster. And I was like, this is like such a weird era of like online and digital media, and I just
Wild West back then.
I picture you like on Napster, like single-handedly taking down Sega Dreamcast.
It was that same hoodie.
Eminem and Elton John rapping at the Grammys.
Yeah, you had the same lighting and everything. Oh man, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yep, that was that time.
These tubes.
It's crazy, man.
This conversation is
making me feel older and older. Sega has fallen very far. We probably won't have time for our review of Sonic Frontiers, but that is what they've been after. And remember, I'll never forget 9/9/99, the best launch day that anything could ever have. Dreamcast comes out. Cool shit,
man. Because like honestly, I remember more people with the Sega Saturn than I did the Dreamcast when I was a kid.
I can't believe that. Because really again, weird. If 1 year later you're buying a PS2, and then the GameCube comes out, and then the Xbox drops, and you're like, well, you better come out with a new console, and they're like, we're broke, we don't have enough money, we spent it all on the fucking Dreamcast.
That was
do y'all like Crazy Taxi? We've got Crazy Taxi.
Fun fact, a lot of money that they used went into the development of Shenmue for the Dreamcast. At the time, $50 million budget. Unheard of. Yes, absolutely insane. And obviously it didn't make its money back, so they were like, we're just gonna get out of the console making business now.
I did play that game, and I will tell you, I actually bought the game because it's Japanese, and it was a double disc. It was multi-discs, and you're just like working as a Japanese dock worker who like fights at the dojo at night. Fucking loved it. Awesome game, very ambitious. But again, it was all backed by the hardware at the time. And
well, it's funny you bring this up because like having an ambitious game like on an ambitious console, like you said, first one to have a modem. I remember I saw a story about how like people played Phantasy Star Online on their Dreamcast, and that had never been done before. But it's an example of like, just because you're the first to do it and innovating doesn't mean it'll necessarily be successful because of PlayStation 2 coming out. I remember playing Battlefield on the PlayStation 2 back in the day. We played it online, and I remember the specific map and hopping into tanks, and it was crazy. But like, yeah, like they pumped a lot of like money and effort into this game and this system. And yeah, they did a good job, but they just didn't have it going for them. And then when their competition stepped up and did it better than they did, it's almost like they became irrelevant with like one console release. And that's not even including the new guy on the block, Xbox, which it's funny because when PlayStation came, when Sony came out with the PlayStation, Sega was like, well, you're Sony, what do you know about making games? And then that completely like PlayStation 1 blew up. And then when Microsoft came out with their, you're Microsoft, like Microsoft, the people who make Windows and Word, what do you know about gaming consoles? And then that came out swinging with Halo, and everybody was like, that generation of console blew people's minds. And I remember walking through the mall, seeing the Xbox and the PlayStation 2 next to each other. One of them was playing Halo, and the other one was playing Metal Gear Solid 2. And it was like they looked mind-blowingly good. And I was like, like to the point where kids were like huddled around. They weren't even fighting to play. They were just watching. Like we were all just like stunned.
Oh yeah. It's nuts, man. Like I don't know when we'll ever get that true. I feel like, and honestly kind of bringing it back around, I feel like VR could do it once they figure out how to A, slim down the headset, and B, create like motion sick inducing movement to where we can just like basically, like I keep saying, I just want to be able to play third person games like with the helmet on. Basically, that's all I want, is to just like be behind, like I'm playing Rocket League behind the car like usual, but I'm in the stadium. Like that's all I want. But hopefully we'll get that, and that'll be that moment that you're talking about, Brian, where everybody's crowding around the Microsoft store like back in the day. Like one day we'll have that, but probably not, because I don't think malls are going to be around too much longer.
We're gonna have to go to the Apple store as long as the Apple headset is super cool. So if it is, we'll buy it.
It'll be in like one of those like multi-use with condos on top, like shopping area things.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. Like Atlantic
be
Station type of place.
Yes, and there'll be like a hologram in the middle because we will be so old by the time that all this stuff gets figured out. There will just be holograms. It's going to look like Night City from Cyberpunk.
Have you children heard of Beat Saber? Get out of here, Grandpa.
In my day, we had these plastic cartridges, and you jammed them in, and when it didn't work, you took it out and you blew on it.
You could touch it in your hand? That's weird. But all right, y'all. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us on the Dirty Rotten Casuals. Thank you, Shabbadooby. Shabbadooby. What is it?
Shabbadooby. Shabbadooby.
That's not my recurring name. When I come back, I can't be.
Yeah, it can't just be Todd. It'd be
Shabbadooby.
Shabbadooby.
See, when I was doing, whenever I guest listed on, when we started doing this as Pocket Change, I was like, I'm going to come up with a new funny name every single time. And then by the third time, I was like, all right, I'm out of ideas.
Yep. Yeah. Imagine like episode 200. No, ain't gonna happen. But all right, y'all. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time on the Dirty Rotten Casuals. Peace.
Later.
Bye.